President Trump has just posted a Truth Social following his meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. I want to read it to you. I have just finished meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and various of his representatives. It was a very good meeting. The tremendous relationship between our two countries continues. There is nothing definitive reached other than I insisted that negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated. If it can, I let the Prime Minister know that will be a preference. If it cannot, we will just have to see what the outcome will be. Last time Iran decided they were better off not making a deal, and they were hit with midnight hammer. That did not work out well for them. Hopefully this time they will be more reasonable and responsible. Additionally, we discussed the tremendous progress being made in Gaza and in the region in general. There is truly peace, all in caps, in the Middle East. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump. Now, earlier today, before that happened, I wrote a column for the Washington Examiner because I think, as the headline says, President Trump's choice is to be in a pile with Truman and Reagan or one with Carter and Obama. It reads this way. Only a military intervention at this point could level the playing field, exiled Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi declared Monday. This is the reason why the Iranian people have been anxiously awaiting the action that the president has promised he will do in support of the Iranian people that will help, that help will arrive. Just hang in there. And they have, the son of the late Shah continued. And they hope that this president will stay true to the word he has always demonstrated and that he's no Barack Obama. Also on Monday, Professor Daniel Shiftan of Haifa University, Israel's Henry Kissinger, invoked the same name, Obama. Asked about President Donald Trump's grasp of the complex and often dark corners of the Middle Eastern conflict, Shiftan and Trump have the right instincts. And mostly, what he did in the Middle East was very helpful for the region. Think of the Abraham Accords, Shiftan said. Think of the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and the support he had for Israel when Israel not only needed to assert its power, not only to destroy the terrorists, but also to deter any immediate next step. But so far, this pillar of Israeli national security establishment concluded, Trump's instincts about the Middle East have been correct. He was certainly not the kind of naive president that we had in Jimmy Carter and in Barack Obama. The exiled Crown Prince of Iran and Israel's Henry Kissinger, in interviews given within an hour of each other, brought up unprompted former President Obama in the context of addressing what President Donald Trump should order America's military to do regarding Iran's arsenal of ballistic missiles, its nuclear weapons program, and the 150,000 members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Neither the Iranian exiled prince nor the Israeli scholar wants Trump to blink. Neither believes that he has yet. But the president will hear from the prime minister today that to accept any agreement from the mullahs that wards off a strike from America's massive naval armada and its extraordinary collection of fighter jets deployed in the region and those capable of deploying from the United States, and probably at least one Ohio-class submarine equipped with Tomahawk missiles under the sea, will be the equivalent of a surrender by Trump, crashing the U.S. deterrence he has restored after the disastrous presidencies of Obama and Biden. Neither of the prior presidents can escape the defining records, neither Carter nor Obama. For Obama, that was the absurd and dangerous Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and for Joe Biden, it was the U.S. precipitous, calamitous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Both decisions revealed the two presidents were appeasers, the sort of presidents who could be cowed and manipulated, the sort of presidents about whom history will deliver devastating verdicts about their time in office. They both blinked, and they both had their knees buckle. The U.S. enemies advanced, and those two retreated. That's it. That's what I wrote today in the D.C. Examiner, the choice before Trump, because history has a way of treating every post-war president by sorting them into piles, a pile beginning with Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman, and a pile beginning with Obama and Biden. Everything else fades away except the president's record of stewardship of America's national security. Carter is not a punchline because of the sweater speech or the gas lines, but because the Ayatollah Khomeini made a laughingstock of Carter before the world. Ayatollah Khomeini, having repeatedly taunted and insulted Trump now, ordered the development and release of an artificial intelligence video of attacks on the USS Abraham Lincoln over the past weekend in a desperate attempt to scare Trump away from ordering the U.S. military to strike. Because of those videos and other bluffs, the massacre of more than 335,000 mostly young Iranian protesters, that's a diversion from blustering from Iran, intended to divert attention from the Iranians and what they have already done. Trump has ordered, Secretary Hegseth and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Dan Kane have overseen a massive buildup of American firepower in the region around Iran. They cannot not use it. It's the equivalent of everything that we did before Desert One and before the invasion of Iraq, before 2003. Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired Rear Admiral, said on this program Monday, we have a window for striking Iran. It's 3 months. The Admiral cited the need. The Lincoln's got to go back and refuel and rest up after 3 months. He also suggested we not strike during Ramadan. That's from from February 17th to March 19th. But there's a lot of time after March 19th. Patience on the part of U.S. hawks is required. It's unlikely that confronted with the choice of be like Reagan or be like Obama, Trump will take the latter. It is the defining moment of the last 2 terms of Trump. Reagan plus is how Senator Lindsey Graham described Trump's second term. The whole world in history will see. So will China and Russia. Xi Jinping and Putin will see if Trump blinks. We have to hope that Netanyahu will be greeted warmly. We now know that he has been. Not left to cool his heels in a waiting room for an hour as he was by Team Obama during the years of the locusts in the U.S. If Trump cares for the Iranian people and history's forever judgment, he will strike Iran when the time and the tides are exactly right, just as he did with Operation Midnight Hammer and Absolute Resolve. That's my Washington Examiner column today. I posted it a couple of times this morning at my X account. I hope you'll repost it and send it around. Got another one tomorrow in Fox News. Just so we're perfectly clear, I don't think the president has a choice. Because I don't think the Iranians will capitulate. I mean, they could capitulate. They could run. They could give up the missiles. Khomeini and his son might take their billions and millions and go to Russia or someplace else. I don't know where they're welcome in the world other than Russia and China. They're evil. I don't know what you do with 150,000 IRGC people who went out in the streets and absolutely slaughtered 35,000 Iranians, mostly young people, machine guns, machetes, you name it, they did it. Run them over with cars, trucks, armored vehicles. And now they're killing them in hospitals. Good, reliable reports. There's no dealing with this regime. Like Neville Chamberlain dealing with Hitler. He never figured it out until it was too late. I don't believe Trump's that man. I don't believe President Trump is going to get taken by these people. I think the buildup takes time. As Admiral Montgomery said, he got briefed on the exposure of our troops and our bases and our allies to the incoming volley of Iranian ballistic missiles. They've got over 1,000 of them, short, medium, and long range, 2,000 miles. They can hit Diego Garcia. They could try and hit Camp Bonsal Bonsteel in Kosovo. That's within range. They could try a bunch of things. But I think they flooded the zone with defensive things. I think they flooded the zone, they being the Pentagon, with all the weapons of war to absolutely crush the regime. Not necessarily make it collapse. Again, there are 150 IRGC. There's an Iranian army of 400,000. There are mullahs all over the place. There are a lot of radicals. At 92 million people that we're not going to go in with boots on the ground. But it can be punished, and the missile threat can be destroyed as thoroughly as President Trump obliterated the nuclear program. So everything he says in a Truth Social post, doesn't bother me. Mr. Witkoff, Jared Kushner going back to Oman doesn't bother me. But it's clear the presidency will be doomed to fail if he doesn't strike. He'll be in the Obama pile. Joined by Noah C. Rothman of National Review. You can follow Noah on X. Up, he froze. We will come back to Noah C. Rothman in a second. By freezing, I gather that means his bandwidth dropped at his home. I blame everything on the cold in these. No, welcome back. I began the program with a monologue that posits Donald Trump has a door in front of him. One door is marked Truman, Reagan. The other one is marked Carter, Obama, Biden. He has to go through one of those two vis-a-vis Iran. Which one do you think he'll go through?
That's an interesting question. I have been under the impression that the Reagan door was already open, that he had one foot out it.
I think he did. I think it is.
It's been curious to see this aborted pressure that was initially put on the regime, ostensibly for a rationale that was almost Carter-esque, a human rights intervention, not necessarily right to protect Susan Powers' philosophy, but something more akin to the notion that the United States has values, that it is willing to defend with military force, and it is especially willing to defend those values with military force against adversaries who are preeminent threats to U.S. national security, indeed global, if not regional security, and with whom we already have a pre-existing hostile relationship. That seems almost doctrinal and pretty easy to follow, considering the president's moves in addition to the strikes on the nuclear program and the Soleimani strike, but the strike on Bashar al-Assad's Syria in retaliation for the use of chemical weapons against civilians, and even to a lesser extent the raid that captured Nicolas Maduro. So all that made a lot of sense to me, but the delay, which I think was attributable initially to the lack of assets in the region, as we've discussed previously, is far less explicable today because the diplomatic process that is going nowhere, I think you and I both agree is going nowhere, there's nothing to talk about, is still ongoing. I'm perplexed.
Oh, I do have a good explanation for you. I had Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery on Monday, right after I had on the Crown Prince Pahlavi. And Admiral Montgomery, who's run a carrier strike group, said, look, it takes 2 weeks on station to establish a battle rhythm. We are now prepared to strike. We can strike before Ramadan. I don't think we ought to strike during Ramadan, but the window that is open is a 3-month window for a carrier strike group, and then it gets stale and they got to be replaced. And I think the defenses have arrived. So I think actually the window just opened this week. No, I didn't know all that, but it's good to talk to people who know that stuff.
Well, I not being an expert, I had nevertheless speculated, but because that we did not have a carrier group in the Persian Gulf, or at least in the region, which was atypical, in part because a lot of them were deployed to Western Pacific, which is desirable, and one at least was deployed, including a lot of other naval assets, was deployed to the Caribbean in pursuit of an operation that I think was valuable, but not strategically urgent. This was not an imminent threat from Venezuela, and I was very frustrated by the fact that we could not take advantage of the historic opportunity.
I got to give you a correction about the Nimitz. The Nimitz is in the Caribbean on its final cruise, and it's going to go around South America, and then it's going to be mothballed. It couldn't have sent it. It had to come home, and it went home in pursuit of a mission. So it actually, where our carriers are.
Even if you take the carrier group out, the one carrier group out, the amount of naval power that we had amassed in the Caribbean was substantial, and there are trade-offs to any deployment. Those Caribbean assets were not deployed to the Persian Gulf, and we could not make good on the opportunity that was presented to us by the protesters in the streets. I think that was a historic missed opportunity. I haven't been disabused of that notion. However,
no, I'm gonna argue because Cuba's about to collapse. I mean, they're really about to fall over because they've been cut off from Venezuelan oil. I think the Venezuelan thing is actually a strategic masterstroke.
I don't think it's wrong, Hugh, that we've struck the Venezuelan government and that we're throttling the Cuban government. Great. I think all these things could have been done simultaneously. We have the power to do so. And I don't think it was necessary to abandon our posture in the Middle East, which is full of many more urgent threats. Cuba is a strategic problem. Venezuela is a strategic problem. The Iranian regime is an imminent and urgent threat to American lives. I just don't think you can put them on the same pedestal. They are very different threats, and one I perceive to be far more acute.
I want to agree with you so often, but you want to argue with. But I want to defend not having carriers in Iran because the Operation Midnight Hammer was conclusive. Israel is in a holding pattern, and we did not foresee the Iranian Revolution uprising coming in December 28th through January 8th. And at that point, the Lincoln is in the South China Sea. The Washington is in port in Japan, coming out of port. We usually have 2 carriers in the Pacific. We only have 3 or 4 carriers deployed at any time, Noah.
Listen, this is kind of beside the point because maybe we should have foreseen it. This is kind of my thing with Cuba policy. Our policy towards Cuba has been to throttle the regime until it cries uncle and its people topple it over. That's basically been our proposition with Iran. And we knew that Iran generates much of its legitimacy, the necessary a pillar of stability from its nuclear program. And when we topple that out from under it, the thing would go wobbly. We knew that. That was the strategy. And then we have the strategy come to fruition, and we look around and we say, "Wait a minute, this is much more complicated than we anticipated that it was going to be." The strikes on Iran that we anticipate are forthcoming,
and they're going. And they have 1,500 missiles, and they can hit our bases. And we have to deploy Patriots and THAADs from all over the world to 13 bases, which we did not foresee because we didn't expect this. We got caught flat-footed. Talk to the intelligence community, but I don't think anything matters if in 3 months he is decimated. I don't mean decimated. I hate it when people use the word decimated. That means 1 out of 10. When he has smashed the Iranian regime, but not necessarily toppled it, because you can't do that from the air. I don't think it's possible to do it from the air.
You can't. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, the Libyan example is a tendentious one, but I agree with you. I think it requires assets on the ground, and we don't have assets on the ground. We would be looking towards the Iranian people to be the instruments of their own liberation, which is desirable. Correct. It's what we should be doing, what we want, that gets us to the strategic point of these strikes. What is the strategic objective? It's not to chasten the regime. It's not to change the behavior of the regime. It's not to get some sort of piecemeal concessions from the regime. It is to see this regime done away with. And and in order to achieve that, you need an asset on the ground that is, if not reliable, at least dedicated to a proposition that you want to support, which was the protesters. So our goal now is to reignite those protests. I don't know if there's a precedent for doing that with air power either.
I have a different goal. My goal is to destroy the missile armaments, the missile factories, and as much of the IRGC as possible, and then see what happens. If you can, kill Khamenei in the process. And if it's done within 3 months, I don't care about how long it took us to do. And I think the president was trying to stop the regime from doing what the regime did, murder 36,500 people, according to Pahlavi, the crown prince. But if it gets done in the end, I'm happy. Last minute to you, Noah.
Yeah, no, that would be... It would be good. It wouldn't be ideal. The threat from the Iranian regime will persist as long as the Iranian regime persists. And its allies are our adversaries, including China, including Moscow, including Cuba and Venezuela. They will all act in defense of their interests. China cannot necessarily afford to see the Iranian regime collapse, especially since it's lost a beneficial partner in Venezuela. So we've got a lot of people who are going to have a say in this sort of situation. And if we're going to embark on this campaign, it might be a long one. The president should be prepared for the prospect that this isn't a one-off event, because if our strategic goal is neutering the regime, as you say, as collapsing the regime as I desire, it's not going to happen in a day or even perhaps even a week of sustained strikes. We need to reignite these protests, and that's going to require ensuring that the regime looks enfeebled. That's going to be a comprehensive campaign.
It took 78 days to push Milosevic to stop the genocide in Kosovo, and then it took a year for him to go after that. I'm a realist about that, but more coming up. Thank you, Noah C. Rothman. I do want to note, I'm aware of the Tumbler Ridge massacre today in British Columbia. 9 are dead. Many are struggling for their lives, shooting at a school. The shooter shot and killed mother and sibling. I don't know enough other details to report more on that, though I will in the days ahead. It's just a terrible, terrible story, as is every school shooting. It's maddening. And Canada, like Australia and other places, very heavy on the gun control, doesn't work in some cases. And the only thing that matters now is the care and comfort of the people. And I think the folks online who are eager to find and politicize the identity of the killer, you can hold off a day, maybe 2. That might be smart. And simply give people a chance to absorb and to read what's going on. and to grieve with the families that are grieving. Vice President J.D. Vance, leaving Azerbaijan today, had a number of things to say. Let's go to, I got to find the cut sheet here, which is difficult. Cut number 2.
Would you like to see regime change in Iran? And what would, if the regime falls, what comes next?
Well, look, I mean, if the Iranian people want to overthrow the regime, that's up to the Iranian people. What we're focused on right now is the fact that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That's been the focus of the president's policy, even going back to the first administration. I'll take one more.
Now, the president has also added no missiles to that list. And there are other things on the list, like the organs of regime repression. And I don't know what Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner are talking about, but the missiles the president put on the list yesterday, I'm not sure that the vice president's caught up with that. He also got a question about the fact some Olympians, I'll talk about this with Comfortably Smug in hour 3, because he talked about it on the Ruthless podcast today. Some American Olympians are bagging on America, and they're getting blowback, of course. Cut number 3.
The Olympic athletes were unbelievable, and I know the entire country is rooting for them. Yes, you're going to have some Olympic athletes who pop off about politics. I feel like that happens every Olympics. My advice to them would be to try to bring the country together. And when you're representing the country, you're representing Democrats and Republicans. You're there to play a sport, and you're there to represent your country and hopefully win a medal. You're not there to pop off about politics. So when Olympic athletes enter the political arena, they should expect some pushback. But most Olympic athletes, whatever their politics, are doing a great job, are certainly enjoy the support of the entire country. And I think recognize that the way to bring the country together is not to show up in a foreign country and attack the President of the United States, but it's to play your sport and represent the country.
Bravo. More from Smug coming up. Rick Santelli from the CNBC got the jobs report today, and it is a pretty good jobs report. Cut number 5.
I'm going to say that nobody's going to rain on my parade, and these numbers are what they are, and $50K. I made this hat 2 months ago. And the reason I made it is for exactly a day like today. All these naysayers steeped in politics continue to be negative. That's okay, because $50K says you've all been wrong. You keep from going in the water even though it's very hot outside. I say all the investment gurus out there, jump in the markets in the U.S. because global GDP is going to take a big ramp up, and the U.S. is leading the way.
Good for Rick. And then we go over to the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. He's on Fox News talking about the jobs report. Cut number 8.
This is what we've been setting the table for all of 2025. I've said that repeatedly. We put the necessary ingredients, policies into place, and now they're starting to pay off. And what's more impressive here is the number that you just gave is the total jobs. There were more than 170,000 private sector jobs, and there was about a 40,000 decrease in government jobs. So as I've been saying since this administration came into office, we are reprivatizing the economy.
That is great, by the way. I do not mind the attrition from the government because the government doesn't produce anything. It can't. I'm doing my relief factor taking right now. I did not fall down last night, so I don't really need this, but I didn't get any exercise either, so I will need it in a couple of days. Relief factor every day. I'm carrying curcumin, resveratrol, omega. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you can see. Every day I'm taking raspberry seltzer. Why? Because that's what's here inside the Beltway. I take it with everything. It used to be lukewarm coffee when I was doing the show in the morning. Now it's in the afternoon. Relief Factor works. It really works, especially when you've done something like I have, which is take 4 days off now. Never a good sign for day 5 or day 6 whenever I next get back out to Trundle. But I'm waiting for it to actually get above 0 around here to do that. It's gotten there, but I still haven't done it yet. 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief to get your starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day. Or go to their website at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. You'll thank me for it. Relieffactor.com. Get the starter pack for $19.95. Sarah C. Bedford is the head of the investigations unit at the Washington Examiner. Sarah, good to see you. I began the program today by reading my Washington Examiner column on the air. It's about Prime Minister Netanyahu and the choice facing President Trump. What are the odds over in the Washington Examiner newsroom on the president hitting Iran? What do you think?
Well, I think there might have been some expectation or hope, I suppose, from Hawks that after the visit with Netanyahu, Trump would say, you know what, we're not going to bother with negotiations with Iran anymore. But there's a counter argument to be made that by continuing the negotiations with Iran, Donald Trump might fend off criticism that would inevitably arise from striking Iran unilaterally, if that is in fact his goal. And there are a lot of clues to that's where Donald Trump is headed, right? He's moved military assets into the area. He hasn't taken military action off the table. In fact, he's sort of been ramping up threats against Iran. So that's very much something that I think a lot of Washington is sort of bracing for. But we talked about this before. Donald Trump really uses unpredictability as a strategic weapon in these sorts of things. And so I don't think that we would know that's happening until after it's done.
1,000%. Now, let me ask you about the SAVE Act, which passed today, 2016 to 2015. Now, I don't think it has a prayer of getting through the Senate. Really, not a prayer. But I want to focus on the fact it's a one-vote margin because Tom Massey voted against the SAVE Act. That's kind of political suicide, isn't it?
Well, perhaps Massey has sort of made the calculation that because the entire Trump political machine is arrayed against him at this point, he's a dead man walking anyway. But it's sort of incomprehensible why any Republican would vote against this. And you mentioned it being dead on arrival in the Senate. That's a real failure of the Senate Republican leadership that they wouldn't be able to find some procedural way to get this through the Senate, given that it's an 80-20 issue that they are on the right side of, that Republicans at the White House aren't really throwing everything they have at this really popular piece of legislation is a little bit baffling, and it's why voters do have frustrations with Republicans that go to Washington and then don't fight for the things they say they support.
Well, you need 60 votes, and the filibuster is not going to get broken over the SAVE Act. I don't think the filibuster will ever get broken unless it's broken by Democrats. Republicans are certainly not going to break the filibuster. Is there any other way besides the nuclear option to pass the SAVE Act?
Well, a lot of conservatives are talking about why not force a talking filibuster, the old-fashioned way. Don't do the bringing the rule and having to get to cloture to end debate, but force a really long debate that could take weeks even. Force Democratic members to give those hours-long speeches on the Senate floor about why they don't want a voter ID law. Could drag on for a long time. I mean, they could offer amendments. There could be a lot of ways that gets bogged down. But, some conservatives who really want to see this passed without totally getting rid of the filibuster have sort of looked at this and suggested maybe a talking filibuster could be one way to get this through the Senate.
And that I'm just not persuaded because a talking filibuster in the end still takes 60 votes to break any Democratic point of order. So I'm not persuaded on that. Let me talk to you about what's going to happen on Friday night. I'm not really sure. We've never been in a shutdown of just the Department of Homeland Security. It's not shutting down ICE, by the way. I'd like to correct everyone out there. ICE has been fully funded for years to come in the one big beautiful bill, so the ICE agents will still be on the street. But TSA, our friendly neighborhood airport security family, is going to get not paid. The Coast Guard, are the Democrats really going to do this, Sarah Bedford?
Well, it's funny, leadership is out there sort of saying there's absolutely no world in which they give another penny to DHS unless they get these really aggressive demands met by the Trump administration over how the DHS should be run. But you have to wonder if some of those centrist or endangered Democrats who voted to end the shutdown in the fall might be tempted to back at least a CR to buy more time for negotiations and sort of kick this can down the road a little bit more. Senator Jackie Rosen, for example, some of those senators who just were uncomfortable with the length of the last shutdown and might really not want to be vulnerable to attacks if they shut down FEMA and TSA and all of these really crucial agencies when, as you mentioned, ICE is already funded. So Republicans might be able to put pressure on those vulnerable centrist Democrats for a CR, but a deal by Friday that fully funds DHS does not look like it's realistic at this point.
Yeah, so they're going to shut down TSA and FEMA. If you were going to design a shutdown intended to do political damage to your own party and nobody else, could you design a more perfect shutdown than one that only inconveniences air travelers and people suffering major disasters? It's really the stupidest thing I've seen the Democrats do.
Yeah, I would be shocked if this lasted anywhere near as long as the one in the fall, which also sort of had Democrats holding out for some really unrealistic demands at the time that didn't seem sort of related to the task of appropriations, right? They had a healthcare ask back then. Now they want to basically overhaul the way the entire immigration system works, over funding to things like FEMA and TSA when ICE is already funded. So that's not the debate that they're having right now. The last shutdown didn't work out very well for Democrats. It would be hard to see this one working out well. So you got to wonder if Schumer's secretly hoping that some of those centrist Democrats will come in and save him by voting at least for a stopgap funding bill.
Now, I hope the Republicans don't go for the CR. The continuing resolution bails them out, but it doesn't embarrass them. And this is really the dumbest thing I've seen. People need to fly, and people impacted by natural disasters need relief. Now, there is no are you aware of any natural disaster depending upon FEMA relief right now?
Not at this current moment. I don't want to jinx it.
No, I don't think so either. And so they got a little bit of time, but how long does it take for the airplane network to start to feel it? It does. The air traffic controllers are not shut down here, right? They're in transportation, so it's just TSA. How long does it take for TSA to start getting the blue flu?
It didn't take very long. You know, you talk about, the FAA, the air traffic controllers are under a different agency, but the same principle would apply, right? If workers aren't getting paid, it did not take very long for that to start to have a real impact on people's air travel. It was just a week or two until you started to feel it. And, after a month, it was really unbearable to the point where Democrats caved. This isn't something that I think a lot of Democrats probably want to be messing with heading into, spring break season, winter break season, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Boy, when people begin missing their airplanes because there are no one at the TSA checkpoint because of Democrats shutting down TSA because they're mad at ICE, they're going to start to wonder about Chuck Schumer. Follow Sarah C. Bedford on X at Sarah C. Bedford. Coming up in next hour, Selena Zito. I've also got Emily Seidel coming up. I've got Comfortably Smug coming up. Mary Catherine Ham will be joining me. Jim Garrity, a lot of people coming up. But next hour, I'm going to take your calls on whether or not you want President Trump to hit Iran. 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. Now let me tell you about my friends, AndrewandTodd.com. They are the very best people in the world to get your home loan from. They are bankers with Union Home Mortgage. They've been in the business for, collectively 60 years. 888-888-1172. That's their phone number, 888-888-1172, or you can go to andrewandtodd.com. Now, the economy's cooking. I don't know that interest rates are coming down. The jobs report today was 180,000 private sector jobs created, or 190, and 40,000 lost in the federal space, or 150,000 job up. And as you heard Rick Santelli saying, it's a very, very good jobs report, but it's not the kind of jobs report that gets the Fed to cut interest rates. That's still a ways away. So if you're waiting for the Fed to cut interest rates, you're going to wait for another 6 months. Don't wait. Call up andrewandtodd.com today, or visit their website. That's what andrewandtodd.com are. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian. Together, they will walk you through the home loan process or the refinance process. Some of you are in a house and you have to refinance, get some money out of it. They're expert at that. You might be a veteran. You might not want to put any money down. They are very good at that. They know how to do that. 888-888-1172. If you're a first-time home buyer, they are indispensable because they explain it soup to nuts all the way through. They pre-qualify you. And not only do they tell you how much money you can borrow comfortably, they don't oversell you, they don't want you to get into too much house. They will give you an approval letter. If you go to a home and you love it, they'll say, here's my approval letter. I'm approved for a loan for this amount, and that's what I can buy your house for, and I'll put this amount down. They'll explain it all for you. If you have to refinance, they'll do the math. A lot of you, you're Steelers fans, you don't do the math. And you've got a lot of credit cards, you got a student loan card, you've got yourself a car loan, and you got a wonderful 4% home loan, and you don't want to give it up because you moved to the sixes. Well, that might not be a good economic decision. Walk through it with Andrew Del Rey and Todd Avakian. They have served thousands of my listeners for more than 10 years, and no one has ever complained. 888-888-1172, or go to andrewandtodd.com, especially if you're a senior citizen and you're thinking about a reverse mortgage. That's where you get money out of your house. You never make another home loan payment. You don't get a mortgage, the reverse mortgage. And it's to get equity out of your house that will make, you live off the interest. You take a little bit every month so that your life can be a little bit easier. Those are more complicated, but Andrew and Todd, they will do it with you. All you have to do is call 888-888-1172. You have to be a senior, 62 years or older, living in your primary residence, and that's the starting point. They'll walk you through it, explain it all to you. Or go to andrewandtodd.com, enter a couple of bits of information. They'll do some prior work, and then they'll call you back. Whatever your home loan need is or refinancing need, andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. Should the president hit Iran, 1-800-520-1234 connects you to me, Hugh Hewitt. I'll go back to Iran in just a moment, but I want to read to you an extraordinary post by radio friend Charles C.W. Cook. Note I said radio friend. I've never met Charles. He's been on my program a number of times. He's an elegant writer, extraordinary intellect, wonderful to have on as a guest, and I follow him on X. So, because I've been lucky in friends my whole life, and I have been very lucky, blessed in friends. People like Rob, Kim, and Scott, and Philip, who are still my friends for 60 plus years, and Patty and Keelan and Molly and Joni and Mary Pat. People have been my friends for 50, 60 years, 70 years. In the case of Mary Pat, I think I've never not known Mary Pat. And even later in life, everybody in the studio is a friend, but I've had just remarkable friends like Bill Lubdell, who's been on this program before, and other great friends throughout my whole life. I still have great friends today. Bud, the contractor, Gary, Steve. I have great friends. But friends indeed. I've studied friendship my whole life. Wrote my senior thesis on friendship, Montaigne's 28th essay in his first collection of essays, first book of essays on friendship. Cicero, Madison, others who wrote about friendship. Well, Charlie posted this earlier today. John Ekdahl was my best friend. He died today of cancer at 47. I know that some of you knew and loved John, so I thought I'd let you all know. I have set up a GoFundMe for his family, which is linked in this tweet. John and I, quote, met, close quote, on Twitter about 13 years ago, and then a couple of years later met in person at the 2014 NRA convention in Indianapolis. We quickly realized that we had a lot of the same interests: technology, amusement parks, baseball. We were both Yankees fans, and soon started texting about everything and nothing. In 2015, when I published my book, the first stop on my promotional tour was in Jacksonville, where John lived. I asked him which hotel I should stay at, and he said that instead I should stay with him and his family. So I did. From that moment on, he and his wife and their two kids, one of whom had just been born 13 years ago, became my closest friends. When in 2017, my wife and I decided to move to Florida, John barraged me with propaganda about Jacksonville, invited us to stay for a few days so that he and his wife could show us around. We were sold. John was like that. For the first few years after I moved to the United States, I wasn't into the NFL. In 2016, this started to change, so John began a remote campaign to turn me into a Jaguars fan. Jags are on, he'd text apropos of nothing on a Sunday. Even though he knew that from Connecticut, the chance of my getting the game was close to zero. As part of this effort, I got weekly AFC South updates, a series of memes about Blake Bortles, an introduction to the perfidious cabaret act that is the Tennessee Titans. John even invited me down to see a game against the Colts, which the Jaguars won 30-10. In my first real season as a fan, the Jaguars made the AFC Championship game and were minutes away from making their first Super Bowl. After I moved down to Florida, John and I bought season tickets together, which we kept until the end. I had hoped devoutly that the Jaguars would make the Super Bowl this season, which was destined to be John's last. During the pandemic, John and I started a business together that, relative to our expectations, did pretty well for a while. As is typical, most of our ideas didn't pan out, but that didn't matter. We had fun coming up with them at the bar, adding just one more drink to the tab to make sure that we hadn't missed an angle or forgotten to write something crucial down on the back of an increasingly ragged napkin. I'm 41 years old, and with the exception of my wife, I've never met anyone who was easier to talk to than John. If we went for lunch, we'd go hours chatting about sports and roller coasters and our kids and the new iPhone and the unforgivable changes that Disney made to Epcot in 1999. I shall miss that immensely. There is one thing we didn't talk about. At no point since his diagnosis did John and I ever acknowledge with each other how serious his condition was, or that, all things being equal, it was likely to take him before his time. I just closed that, unfortunately, so I have to go back and find out where I was. From the start, it seemed that John silently picked me to be the person with whom he could pretend that everything was normal, and I fulfilled that role until this last Friday. Even things were terribly, terribly clear, we'd make plans to take a trip to New Hampshire with our families and friends, to ride the new roller coaster at Epic Universe, to go to opening day at the new Jaguar Stadium in 2028, and more. The last time I saw him, I said the same thing as I said every time I chatted with him over the last 11 years. Talk to you in a bit. GoFundMe link is there. Now, I've linked that and reposted it over at X, and the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I have made a contribution to the GoFundMe simply because that kind of friendship is rare in America for a lot of reasons. You have to be proximate to your friend. You can have longtime friends, but you can't be proximate. And your friendships can't be interrupted by or based upon politics, because those are not the kind. Aristotle has three kinds of friendship: pleasure, convenience, and the highest form, which is an exchange of ideas and of souls, the sort that Montaigne writes about in the essay on friendship that Madison and Cicero wrote about. But Aristotle really laid it out. Larry Arn's another friend of mine. But proximity is really the sauce in which genuine friendship can simmer, and they had that, and that's maybe the most beautiful thing I've written about friendship. I've read about friendship in years that was original. Right? So there's a lot about friendship out there, but that's original. And I would recommend you go and read it for yourself and ask yourself, is there someone in your life, or has there been someone in your life? They don't always last, but it's good that it can last 15 or 20 years. Now to Iran. I want to take a few calls before I get to Selena Zito, and then my guest next hour, Emily Siddell, and I'll be talking with Jim Garrity and others, smug especially, about the choice facing the president. And I want them to hit Iran hard so that their jaws rattle, so that the IRG are devastated, so that the missiles are destroyed and in dust. And if there's anything left of the nuclear program, bounce the rubble. You can't cause regime collapse with an air campaign. But you can punish and deter, and you can certainly remove the threat to our allies in the region, Israel, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, our bases in Iraq. By destroying the missiles, you can certainly teach the crazy fanatics at the top of the Islamic Republic that they cannot do these things. Murder 35,000, 36,500 is the minimum now, according to Crown Prince Pahlavi, without the leader of the West taking note and punishing them. And you can destroy the threat to us, and I think you can do so while there is risk. There is not great risk to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. Eric in Newport Beach. My phone number, by the way, is 1-800-520-1234. What do you think, Eric?
Hey, I think if we're going to attack them and reduce their missiles to rubble and destroy a little bit of RGC, I think we should be able to possibly, I don't know if the military can do it, but I'm sure they could, airdrop weapons for the civilians to able to fight back and not send our troops in to fight. But while they're attacking the missiles and everything, also your airdrop weaponry so they can fight without bare hands.
Well, I think there are actually better ways than airdrops. I would assume, but I do not know, that our covert agencies and Israel's covert agencies are doing that because, Israel built a drone factory inside of Iran before the 12-day war. So Israel is so thoroughly infiltrated the Islamic Republic of Iran. I assume they have rat lines that run in there like we ran guns to the Mujahideen against the Russians throughout the 80s out of Pakistan. We did that. I'm sure we can do it. I'm 100% with you, Eric. I just don't think airdrops are the most efficient way of doing that.
I think that you need to do a whole lot of them. The way you were talking about the past things takes time. I think at the same time you bomb them, you drop all over the place. Of course, the military is going to capture some of it, but a lot of it will be in the civilians' hands immediately. And
well, it's a good symbolic thing. I got nothing at symbol. I just think it's a lot easier to get a lot of weapons. You know, it's a porous country. Smuggling goes on there all the time, all over the place. There are mountains and passes and big borders with Iraq. They smuggled in IEDs to blow up Americans for 20 years in Iraq. So it's not like there aren't smugglers going into it. We can get a lot of guns in there, but it's a great idea. And I want to applaud that. Thank you much. I'll come to you, Mark, after the break. I don't have time to come to you right now. 1-800-520-1234. I do hope that you're watching on the Salem News Channel. I hope you are watching on the YouTube channel. I post most of my big clips. The interview with Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has attracted 70,000 views in the last couple of days over at YouTube. So has Admiral Montgomery. Incredibly, gotten like 60,000 views because people are interested in this topic. They're all there. We save them all. I do want to remind everyone I'm in the Relief Factor studio. And I am broadcasting from the Beltway where it's cold. And I want to go back to the phones and talk to people. Alan in Oakland, California. Hi, Alan. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. Of course, I think we should attack. I think we need more favorable conditions. And I think that J.D. Vance said exactly the right thing, and he was talking to an audience of one. And I hope that one person takes it the way I think he should take it.
Well, what's that mean? What's the way you think he should take it?
Well, I think the Ayatollah should believe that we're in a weak position, and therefore he'll do something that makes it favorable for our attack.
Oh, okay, so you're thinking it's part of the head fake, the giant head fake.
Very big head fake, Hugh.
Okay, I that is, by the way, why I'm not upset by anything that's going on. And I remember the last time in June of last year, I think they had just finished a round of negotiations and Midnight Hammer happened. So nothing surprises me.
And one thing also, we're changing the mission. We're making it bigger.
There sure are a lot. When you send 24 F-22s, the apex predator of the air, they're not going there for show. And they're not there to protect bases. I don't think they are. I don't know what they're mission capable of, but they are there to penetrate and protect airspace. They'll shoot down anything that flies. So, appreciate the call, Alan. Phil in Philadelphia, 1-800-520-1234. What do you think, Phil?
Hey, Mr. Hewitt, it's inspiring to hear that you were there with, President Nixon watching this unfold in real time. I was just a few weeks away from graduating Marine Corps boot camp in November 1979 when the trash can came down the middle of the squad bay. We were all ordered up to the top of the bulkhead, and we all sat around clustered. They wheeled out the TV, and we saw these hostages being taken out, blindfolded, the American flag being burned. And the DIs told us it didn't matter what you came in for, what you think your guarantee is, you are now a grunt, and we are going to war. And you know what, Mr. Hewitt? We were ready to go right then. And God bless these Marines in Beirut in 1983, a couple of I graduated with. A couple weeks after I was honorably discharged, boom. So I hope they put on one of these missiles with love from Beirut, because these guys got some payback coming, some big-time payback.
Not just Beirut, though that was the largest loss of life in the Marines since World War II. But Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia, that's an Iranian mission. The Jewish Community Center in Argentina, Iranian mission. Assassination after assassination after assassination in Europe. People might not remember Shapur Bakhtiar, but I do. He was a Democrat, small d Democrat, didn't like the Shah. They went and murdered him. They went on a worldwide killing spree. They're terrorists. They're crazy people. And
our war fighters are ready to go. They're ready to go.
I appreciate your service. I'm glad you reminded people of what they did to the Marines because people forget. And then they killed over 1,000 service people in Iraq when we were fighting to liberate Iraq. They just fed IEDs to the Shiite militias there to kill Americans. And we didn't do anything, and there's a lot of payback, but more importantly, those missiles threaten Europe. They threaten all of our allies, Israel. They threaten our bases in the Middle East. They're a dangerous, fanatical regime, and they're not nuclear. They're not North Korea. We can't let another nation go nuclear. So I don't think President Trump will back down. I hope not. By the way, one more question since you're a vet. How long do you give him to... Oh, he's gone. All right. Kenny in Virginia. I don't even know where Christianfield County is.
Chesterfield County.
Okay, Chesterfield County. Where is it?
All right, it borders Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, I was with former Governor Youngkin last night. I said I wanted him back. I said, can we make you go back? Because it's been a bad 3 weeks since he left. But no, we can't do that.
No. I was talking about Chesterfield borders Richmond.
Yeah.
The community in Chesterfield is Midlothian, Virginia. That's where I live.
All right.
But it's in Chesterfield County.
Well, good to have Midlothian. There's a Midlothian, Ohio, so you must have been second.
Oh, this is Midlothian, Virginia.
I know, but there's a Midlothian in Ohio, so you must have been the second Midlothian.
Oh, yeah, must be.
All right. So go ahead. What do you think about Iran?
Well, you're dealing with a bunch of religious fanatics, and don't give them a chance. I mean, try to negotiate, which is going to be virtually impossible. And don't take any crap off of them. If they don't succeed to what the United States and allies want, go in militarily. You don't have any choice, and if they think you're lying or the United States can't do it, I mean, within 72 hours, a country of Iran could be a parking lot.
Well, we don't want to do that. Most of the 92 million Iranians are innocent, but we sure could find and destroy all of the IRGC barracks and a lot of the Quds Force barracks and their entire Navy. They keep talking about their 5 submarines. I think they're Gilligan Island submarines, but we could find everything that is part of their army if the army doesn't come over to the side of the people. Thank you, friend. Don in Minnesota. Hi, Don.
Yeah, hi.
You're on the air.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I believe he should do, if he's going to go to war with them, he should take out the government, leave the oil alone, leave the assets alone, so that people can rebuild. But don't pussyfoot around and leave the government in because they're the evil ones.
I agree. They're going to be hiding in bunkers all over the place. We've seen Khomeini exactly once in like 6 months. So I'm not sure we can find him, but if we can, capture or kill him. Absolutely. Thank you, Don. Mike in Glendora, California. Hello, Mike.
Hi there, Hugh. This is Mike from Chapman and Kevin. Hey, listen,
oh, good.
I support attacking the missile capabilities of Iran. But I would also like to find out what the efficacy would be of actually doing a Maduro on their Karg Island. Just supporting what the last guy said, don't destroy the facilities, but capture them, capture that island, stop all oil coming in and out, whatever they're doing, and disable them that way.
And repel any attempt to take it back?
Exactly. Of course.
That's an interesting idea, Mike. No wonder Kevin's a smart guy. No, I mean, I haven't heard that idea before.
Well, it's a big island. Okay, there's a lot of people on it, I'm sure. And if you don't capture the island, I guess you could destroy the pipelines going into it, so that you stop any oil. You'd create a huge infrastructure issue there. So that was
but more easily repaired. That's pretty smart.
It is.
You tell Kevin that his dad's smarter than he was. I mean, he was pretty smart, but you tell him that for me, would you? Don't go anywhere, America. I'm coming right back. Okay. Mike's son, Kevin, was in my law school class. Not this year, last year. I'm not teaching this year. And he was pretty smart. Taking phone calls from you folks about whether or not President Trump ought to hit Iran and hit them hard, I want to play for you J.D. Vance on the tarmac at Azerbaijan talking about Iran. Can we play that cut, please?
Would you like to see regime change in Iran? And what would, if the regime falls, what comes next?
Well, look, I mean, if the Iranian people want to overthrow the regime, that's up to the Iranian people. What we're focused on right now is the fact that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That's been the focus of the president's policy, even going back to the first administration.
Now, Brett Baer had Nikki Haley on last night. This is what Ambassador Haley had to say, cut number 11.
I think that there's an option. You can either have Obama 2.0, where you negotiate another nuclear deal and give them sanction relief and watch this whole thing happen again, or you can actually be strong and nip this in the bud so that we never have to deal with it again. Call it what you want. It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do, and no one else is going to do it except Israel, us, and maybe the UAE. It's not going to be the UN. In fact, the outgoing chair of the UN Commission on Social Development, fellow from Ukraine, welcomed the new vice chair of the next session of the UN Commission on Social Development today, cut number 9.
May I take it that the Commission wishes to elect by acclamation Mr. Abbas Tajik of the Islamic Republic of Iran and Mr. Shahryar Khajiev of Azerbaijan as vice chairs of the 65th session of the Commission for Social Development.
Do you know what?
No objection.
Can I just say, the idea, I know the UN's absurd. The UN is absurd. And it's been absurd for a long time. But the idea that the chairman of the Social Commission, who's from Ukraine, who's under attack from Russia, right? A rogue regime that buys its, Russia gets its drones that blow up all things in Ukraine from Iran. But because of the puppet theater that we engage in at the UN, we have to sit by when she says this. Cut number 9. Then I'll play you a feel-good story.
May
Cut
I
number
take
9.
it that the Commission wishes to elect by acclamation Mr. Abbas Tajik of the Islamic Republic of Iran and Mr. Shahryar Khajiev of Azerbaijan as vice chairs of the 65th session of the Commission for Social Development.
I can't believe they got the Ukrainian representative to do that, but they did. All right. This is a CBS News report that came out last night, and Tony DeCopel is the anchor. And I saw it online. I thought, okay, we need some good news today, as well as all this talk of war. Cut number 10 from CBS News last night.
It comes via police body cam footage from Louisville last month. A missing 3-year-old child. More than a half dozen officers on the search. They sent up a helicopter, but had no luck until this happened.
Oh, what's up, dude? There's a dog. Where's he at? Let's go.
That's Officer Josh Thompson responding to a dog that seemed to have something important to say.
It led me all the way back to the backyard. At that point, I'm thinking, okay, this kid's in this backyard.
And sure enough,
the dog went right to the back bumper. Check the rear here. Goes to the back bumper and just sat there.
Yeah, he's right here. After a quick lesson in car locks,
grab and pull it. I don't think I've ever seen a happier kid in my life. He jumped out of the car, bear hugged my neck, and wouldn't let go.
Good job, buddy. The dog had cracked the case.
Blessing found him. Man, I don't know where the dog came from, but it was a blessing from God that day.
And here's the thing about that dog. Officer Thompson says he'd been patrolling that neighborhood for 2 years and had never seen the dog before that moment. And he hasn't seen the dog since that day. And to this very day, the department still does not know who the dog belongs to.
Well, the dog was Rin Tin Tin, obviously. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, can we start that? It's Rin Tin Tin. I'm telling you, it's Rin Tin Tin. Run it again, and I'll talk over it. This dog is Rin Tin Tin. So the officer's walking around. Got a body cam footage on.
You're too old, it's Lassie.
No, it's not Lassie. It's Rin Tin Tin. Lassie is a collie. This dog is Rin Tin Tin. So he's been in crypto freezing land. What did they put Walt Disney in?
Cryogenics.
That's the cryogenically. They brought him back, and somewhere, I guess in Louisville. But Now,
You're
the
saying
message
they
of the,
reanimated Walt Disney into Rin Tin Tin and saved a boy.
No, I'm saying they reanimated Rin Tin Tin. I think Disney owned Rin Tin Tin. And so Rin Tin Tin is back. What I do want to tell all you people out there, the 3-year-old had locked himself in a parked car. Do not let your kids play in car. They are death traps. They are death traps. Do not let that happen. Selena Zito missing in action, and I don't know why. Probably because she never misses. So that means the president's on the phone with her. That happened last week, too. Maybe he calls her on Wednesday afternoon just to screw around with the program. I don't think so, but I'm thinking that. The meeting is over at the White House. There has been no official statement yet that we can find. There are lots of fine pictures of the president together with Prime Minister Netanyahu, but there have been no leaks. There's been not a word. Here is, by the way, something we didn't have yesterday because it was aired after we were on the air. President Trump sat down with Larry Kudlow and talked about Iran, cut number 1.
I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. We took out their nuclear power last time, and we'll have to see if we take out more this time.
Do you think a deal with Iran, with this current regime, would ever really stick?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know one thing. They want to make a deal. They wouldn't talk to anybody else, but they're talking to me. But, you know, it's a good question. A lot of people say no. And I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want. But some people worry that they've been very dishonest with us over the years, right? Very dishonest. Obama and Biden, what they did in terms of creating a monster with Iran was terrible. That Iran nuclear deal was one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen.
He's right. It was. He's called it the worst deal in history a dozen different times. Now contrast that, and I don't blame Vice President Vance for this, because Vice President Vance is in Armenia and Azerbaijan, and my guess is he does not know what President Trump told Larry Kudlow, but he does know what they had agreed to say when he left. Cut number 2 on the Azerbaijan tarmac today.
Would you like to see regime change in Iran? And what would, if the regime falls, what comes next?
Well, look, I mean, if the Iranian people want to overthrow the regime, that's up to the Iranian people. What we're focused on right now is the fact that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That's been the focus of the president's policy, even going back to the first administration. I'll take one more question.
Okay, so he doesn't mention missiles. To repeat and emphasize, this is President Trump last night, cut number 1.
I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. We took out their nuclear power last time, and we'll have to see if we take out more this time.
Do you think a deal with Iran, with this current regime, would ever really stick?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know one thing. They want to make a deal. They wouldn't talk to anybody else, but they're talking to me. But, you know, it's a good question. A lot of people say no. And I would say that I'd rather make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. No nuclear weapons, no missiles, no this, no that, all the different things that you want. But some people worry that they've been very dishonest with us over the years, right? Very dishonest. Obama and Biden, what they did in terms of creating a monster with Iran was terrible. That Iran nuclear deal was one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen.
It was. Now, it is not impossible to get a, quote, good deal. It's just extremely unlikely, like 95% unlikely. But George W. Bush got a deal with Libya. In the aftermath of the invasion of Iraq, Gaddafi said, don't invade me, come get all my WMD. And we did. An elaborate operation. It was kept very secret. Didn't want the terrorists in the country to know that there were chemical weapons. I mean, warehouses full of it. And they had to be treated in ships offshore. They had to be moved out by a special group. They were, I think there were also nuclear components as far as I know, as I can remember. But they got it all out of the country and no one knew. So it's possible to capitulate. They can actually say, okay, send your team tomorrow to ABC Street in Tehran and you can get the first dozen missiles out. And you might go, you might have a bunch of SEALs with you, and you might be prepared for bad things happening. But you might also say, well, we'll just blow it up from the sky. I don't know what you would do. Let's go to President Trump right now.
Taking in In this case, oil. We had 50 million barrels of oil that we have floating right now to Houston to be refined, and we're getting energy from all different sources. And so oil and gas is fantastic. So many of them are so good, but we're not going to use the bad ones. America is now the #1 energy producer in the world. We are by far #1. In fact, we're very soon going to be #1 by double what #2 is. And under our leadership, we're becoming a massive energy exporter. In just the past few months, we've made historic trade deals with Japan, Korea, India, and others to increase our coal exports dramatically. We're now exporting coal to all over the world, and the quality of our coal is supposed to be, I'm not an expert in coal, but I've been very good to the people that are. The quality of our coal is supposed to be the finest anywhere in the world. From West Virginia to Wyoming, from Ohio to Montana, and all across the country, we're lifting up our hardworking American miners like nobody has ever done before. We're bringing down costs of American consumers, and together we're making the most of the magnificent land that God gave us to rebuild the greatest economy and the greatest nation in the history of the world. Another one of my favorite words is the word tariff. Tariff is I know they want to hear that little story. I used to say it's my favorite word. They said, what about God? What about religion? What about family and your wife, your children? So now I make it my 5th favorite word. Oh, you have no idea. I suffered. I was suffering from the fake news media. They were going after me when I said it was my favorite word. So I make it #5, and I think I'm generally speaking okay. They'd like it to be a little bit later than that. But because of tariffs, you saw that it was just announced, our trade deficit has gone down. Now, if you go down 1 point, 2 points, you're like a genius. It's gone down 78%. 78%. Can you believe it? And we have to fight. Right, Speaker? And we have to fight. Just came out. Everyone's saying, that can't be right. 78% reduction in our trade deficit. And next year, we're going to be positive if we keep it all going. We're waiting for a very important...
So that is a speech about coal, and a bunch, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, a bunch of coal miners and hard hats there. So I know where Selena Zito is. I know where she is. She's at that event with the Pennsylvania coal miners. Not an event about Iran. So no more about that. Don't miss the savings you can get from Consumer Cellular, one of our great sponsors. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh, or call 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. And remember, whether you go online or you call them, 1-800-411-4454. Remember, use my name. It's a code word, Hugh. Say code Hugh. That gets you your 2nd month free no matter what you sign up for. If you're over 50, you should sign up for 2 lines of unlimited data for $60 a month because it's the best deal in the world. Don't sacrifice savings for service. Same service everywhere. Same cell phone towers everywhere. All you have to do is make the switch. It takes about 20 minutes to switch when you call 1-800-411-4454. They are the equal of anyone out there, and you'll save money. And if you're over 50, 2 lines, unlimited data. Take your number with you. Take your contacts with you. 2 lines, unlimited data, $60 a month. Tough to beat that. Head to ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. Don't forget, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I'm holding up the bag if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. Holding up the bag. Took it in hour #1. Remind you in hour 2. I take it every single day like I did in the first hour. Why? Because it works. Now, I have not been exactly a triathlete since I got back to the Beltway. Too cold on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I think I'm going to get a couple of miles in tonight because it's only about 45 degrees. Sun came out today. Snow's beginning to melt. Not as bad. Wouldn't be prudent yesterday. Not going to do it yesterday because of the ice, but I'm going to do it tonight. Not a long way, but something just to keep moving. Doesn't matter if I move or not because Relief Factor will fill in the gaps. You can't forever slow down, but you can take a week off every now and then. And Relief Factor will go after those minor aches and pains that will come next week for me when I go up the Implacable Hill. And I'm back in sunny California for 2 more weeks. 1-800-4 and the word relief. Call them today. Ask for that starter pack. $19.95, 3-week supply. It's not 100% guaranteed. I'm not going to tell you it's going to fix everything that ails you, but it's going to fix a lot of things that ail a lot of people. It's especially good for tennis elbow aches, for lower back aches, for the knees and the ankle aches that come with exercise and aging. It's especially good for that. I've never had tennis elbow, but I've had enough people stop me at events to tell me that their tennis elbow just went away. Kind of remarkable if you ask me, but I'll never forget my friend in the front row in Cleveland last time I was in Cleveland. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, or go to relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Special shout out to Sean Alexander, former NFL MVP, great guy to interview last night at the One Small Step event. And I want you to go to a250toolkit.com to follow up on that. a250toolkit.com. I'm going to talk with Emily Seidel about that. Hope you're watching on the Salem News Channel because I got a great guest. I went to a great event last night, the One Small Step event, sponsored by Standing Together. One of the sponsors of Standing Together is my sponsor, Americans for Prosperity. And it was a great event. 4 great pairs, like Guy Benson and Tom Emmer stole the show because Guy, I hate him, is very funny. And then Katie Pavlik and Glenn Youngkin really hit home run. Emily Seidel and Keith Kroc. Keith is running the America 250 event. And then I had a wonderful conversation with Sean Alexander. But then Emily Seidel went up there and just killed it, crushed it, like she did in the green room before. So I asked her to join me today to go back over that. Emily, first of all, first-class event last night, and you killed it at the end. And I want people to understand why they need to go to A250 Toolkit, why they need to take one small step, and what it is about the One Small Step campaign. I found it very inspiring in the green room with Guy when you were laying it out for us. So lay it out for people that way.
Okay, I'll do my best. So the highlight here is that we cherish freedom in this country, but freedom just doesn't self-sustain. People have to defend freedom at all times. And one of the more troubling things that we're seeing happening in the country right now is that increasingly people are feeling like their voices don't matter, that the American dream is out of reach. People's pride in being an American is at an all-time low. These are flashing warning signs about the future of the American experiment. But I don't think, and the argument that I was making last night at the close of the program, is that those flashing warning signs aren't happening in a vacuum. They're happening over the period of time that we are seeing the growth of the size and scope of government shoot straight up into the right on a graph. And so if you think about it that way, as government gets bigger and bigger, it takes away decision-making and it takes away agency from individuals. And I think that is actually why people are starting to feel like their voice doesn't matter, why the American dream is out of reach, because they don't feel like they're in control of their own destiny. And that was fundamentally
my friend Dennis Prager, Emily.
Yeah.
I want to tell you what Dennis said. As the government gets bigger, the citizen gets smaller. And I'm sure Dennis is listening right now, but he would say that. I mean, maybe once a week, as government gets bigger, citizens get smaller. And that's the point you were making. It just resonated with me.
Yeah. And so One Small Step is about people taking some of that agency and that power back. And it might feel daunting, right? Like it's just too big of a challenge to tackle. And so we're saying that we don't have to go from 0 to 100. Just take one small step. And then from there, you can see how everybody taking these seemingly small and independent steps actually together, that's what really drives big change. And that's at the heart of being a grassroots organization, which, as you know, AFP is.
And people say, what is one small step? I can give them 100 of them. One of them is you can join Americans for Prosperity local chapter, and they'll put you to work. If you don't know what to do, just find AFP and Americans for Prosperity, and they'll put you to work. But you can go to a school board meeting. You can go to a city council meeting. You can ask to be on a town council board. There are always vacancies, pretty much in every city, Emily. I've discovered that over the years. If you want to be involved in local government, it's very easy to get involved. But the key thing I took away, it isn't about making this audience louder. It's about making it smarter and better prepared to engage in preserving, protecting, and expanding freedom. Not louder, better.
Right. And understanding our country more deeply, too. the history. People are feeling more and more disconnected from our history, and so the 250th anniversary of our country's founding gives us an opportunity to revisit the founding ideals that our founding fathers put in place, not as sort of highfalutin as my mom would say, or as these lofty principles or distant sort of concepts. They were giving these principles as things that we had to protect in order to be successful in this American experiment in the first place. And so generation after generation has had to renew our commitment to protecting these principles. And now that charge falls to us.
Now, it's not nostalgia. That's what I want people.
No.
And it's fine. The celebration is fine, but it's not nostalgia. It's not about the good old days. It's about creating the next 250 years. I kind of got excited about this last night because is anyone else doing this? I know Libre's involved with you on this. There's a veterans organization. Is it spreading well?
It is. People are getting really excited about it. So if anybody wants to get involved and if you are involved with Concerned Veterans for America, you're already in this. If you're involved with the Libre Institute or the Libre Initiative in Hispanic and Latino communities across the country, you already have a leg up on getting involved in this. And then obviously Americans for Prosperity is driving on this as well. But this is an invitation to anybody and everybody who wants to learn more about these principles, really make them tangible in their lives, how they can defend them, be inspired by the stories of other people who have taken one small step, and then ultimately find their first step too. You mentioned a ton of great ones, but sometimes it's just coming into a field office and you don't even have to talk to anybody. You can write postcards to encourage people to go vote and take civic action. You can take one small step at a time until you get to a place where you see the impact of the work that you're doing. And then from there, it's just a snowball effect, because once you know that you can have an impact on the future of our country, you never want to stop.
No, I was talking to my guest interview with Sean Alexander, NFL MVP, big time Super Bowl star. Everybody knows Sean Alexander. They don't know that he had a teacher. Yes, he was, but that's okay.
Afterwards, yeah.
He has 14 children. I loved your comment. You had 2 and you're exhausted. But Sean and his wife have a lot of optimism. But he told the story. He ran for a school body president 6 times, and he had a teacher encourage him in junior high. And, he got to come back from injuries. Everyone's got a backstory. Your one small step might be encouraging someone else who's younger to actually do a campaign. It's the most effective way to get someone involved in politics is for them to get addicted at age 18. Emily, that's my experience. I love people to be an AFP volunteer, and I don't think there's any age limit on being an AFP volunteer, is there?
Oh, absolutely not. If you show up to a field office, you're going to see kids coming over from their classes at the end of a high school day and making phone calls or gearing up to go out door knocking, and you're going to see folks who are well into their 80s who are making phone calls or writing those postcards that I mentioned, or just being there and helping to organize the troops. It's a multi-generational effort, and I think that's what makes it special.
And that's what, again, go to a250toolkit.com, a250toolkit.com, and you can get involved. What we also did last night was talk about founding principles, which is, I'm a sucker for that. I teach con law, so I do it every year. And I'm not teaching this semester, so I've got a little addiction that needs to be fed here. But you guys were talking about the basics last night, the very bedrock principles behind the Declaration. You want to run through them?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the pursuit of happiness. And because that was the theme. Every month we have a different theme. And so pursuit of happiness was last night's theme. But I think at a high level, what we're talking about here are the basics, freedom, opportunity, dignity, rule of law, limited government, and civic duty. And honestly, one of the things that's really stuck with me in some of the conversations that I've been having with folks is that if you think about liberty doesn't work without responsibility. And civic duty is at is the bedrock that this American experiment lives or dies on. And so that's a big part of why One Small Step is action oriented, because it's not just talking about these principles. It's not just the rhetoric. It's also about making sure that people can take action on them and defend them.
Now, coming up after you in the next segment is Smug. He's on once a month. Comfortably Smug coming up. And we were talking trash about Smug. I was talking trash. You were being nice about him, but I was talking trash. He's very upset about the Olympic athletes who are trashing the country. And we'll talk about that after we talk about your Philadelphia event. But tell people about these big events and where they find out about them, because it was a lot of fun last night, and that Philadelphia event, I think, sold out in like a minute. It wasn't even a sale.
Well, that's because the Ruthless guys were going to be there, and they always sell out an event, that's for sure. But look, if you go to a250toolkit.com, you're going to get connected to all of these things. We've got marquee events like the one that we did in Philadelphia in January, like the one that we're about to do in Springfield, Illinois this month. We're having those monthly all across the country, literally coast to coast. And so there's certainly going to be one that is near you. But we're also doing a ton of events that are celebrating and talking about these principles in our field offices on a daily basis. So if you go to a250toolkit.com, you can get connected to all of that information and show up and see what your one small step can be.
This is about purpose. The future is participatory. It's a birthday with purpose, so get involved in the birthday. Just don't go to the fireworks show, though those are great. Keep Croc, they're great. But I want people to get involved. A250toolkit.com. Emily Seidel, thank you. Even though you stole the show last night, thank you anyway. Comfortably Smug joins me. He of the Ruthless podcast. Smug, I got to tell you, last night we were talking about you behind your back at the Americans for Prosperity Standing Together event in D.C., and Emily Seidel was telling me that you and the fellas put on a show in Philadelphia. It was sold out. It was wild. It was great fun. And I said, well, it's not fair because his demo runs from 18 to Britt Hume, because Britt and I were talking about you guys last week, and he listens to every podcast. He said, you're a rollicking show. It's not really fair. My demo is basically that the top of the bell curve is 55, and so your demo begins at 18. It's not really fair.
Well, our show wouldn't even exist if you hadn't led the way for all of us on the conservative side. Thanks so much for having me on, Hugh.
Oh, it's good to have you, but tell us about the Philadelphia event, because it was wild to listen to, but Emily said in person it was even more fun.
I mean, it was tremendous. The crowd was enormous. The venue was terrific. And we had Jaws. We had Jaworski there with us, which, I mean, in
Youngstown
Philadelphia,
State.
I don't think you could find. Yeah, you can find a bigger star. And it was tremendous. It was a celebration of America for America 250. It was great crowd. I think a lot of folks got inspired to take one small step and get involved. The best way to celebrate America's 250th is to help ensure we have another 250 years.
Yeah, I loved hearing Jaws, and Ron Jaworski played for the Penguins when I was a kid, and so hearing him on the program was great fun. But Smug, I listened to your show yesterday about the Olympics. I'm torn between being 100% with you and a little bit with Josh. First of all, it's not all easy on all Olympians. We saw a skier go down the downhill yesterday. Roll that tape for Smug to see. And they're going down the downhill, and he takes a flag right here coming up in the groin and right here. Boom. And he's done. So it's not easy being an Olympian. You should hear the audio, Smug. Nevertheless, when I heard those doofus kids, and they're just ignorant. They're ignorant. I had steam coming on my ears because you ought to take a civics class before you put the flag on your chest and represent the United States. So I'm not sure I want to ban them all, but you're rooting against the whole team. Did I get you right on Ruthless?
100%. I'm a firm believer in using collective punishment as a way to get the group to police itself. For so long, you know, especially for folks on the left who want attention, they see this kind of like anti-America advocacy as a cheat code to get attention, because that's really what they're after. They're trying to either signal to people, look at me, I'm so nice, I'm as virtuous as the rest of you, you know, left-wing lunatics, or they're just trying to get a microphone in their face and getting rewarded by journalists who say, well, you said you hated America, tell me more. But it completely ignores the honor that they have representing the United States, of having the American flag on your chest, competing for the United States of America, competing for the country which allowed you to pursue your dreams, because the fact of the matter is the reason America has been so successful in the Olympics, in sports, in all avenues of life globally is because of the opportunity that it provides. It's why everyone in the world wishes they could be in America. And for these people who were so fortunate to grow up in America and be allowed all the benefits as a competitor of being in America, to then attack America, it makes no sense to me. It's disrespectful. And I think any pressure that we can put on the entire team to self-police and to make it known that, listen, you are being given a distinct honor and privilege of being able to be on the world stage representing America, and you should take that seriously, and you should be grateful for that, because so many people in this country and around the world wishes they could have an opportunity like these individuals were given.
You know, I was hoping, and I'm still hoping, and I've seen some of the athletes with flags. Some of them are great patriots. Some of them, very touching to see the kid who lost his parents in the airplane crash in D.C. last year. There are a lot of touching stories, and these morons, they were really dumb, Smug. Did you know that it was a boy and a girl? They couldn't put a coherent sentence together if you had a ski pole at their groin. They could not do it. They were not ready to do. They made no sense. They were up talking in half sentences. So I really do think maybe young athletes don't get to school enough. Did you think any of them were educated?
Well, I think there's certainly, we saw even at the Super Bowl where there's this kind of like a pressure of like, oh, don't you know, it's cool to kind of like hate America and make a statement about it, when we just had an election and clearly the vast majority of the U.S. population loves and supports this country. We've already had that argument completed. But the fact of the matter is that you have these idiots chirp up and say, oh, it's kind of hard to like America these days. When at the same time, that's the country that has given them the opportunity to compete. But further, a really interesting thing to me is that whenever you get on the world stage, there's these journalists who are very excited to try to find an American willing to say, oh, wow, America's bad. It's strange how they never ask any of the Chinese athletes how they feel about the Uyghur concentration camps, if they're familiar with what happened in Tiananmen Square. It's like only American athletes are there to humor
it would be amazing
if
we had a Chinese athlete. How do you feel about Jimmy Lai's conviction on Sunday night? You're free to come and compete, but provided you don't answer my question, you won't be removed. But if you do, we'll never see you again. Do you think the dummies know anything about that?
None. And they are so ill-informed. And that's the thing. Is you are being given this platform, you're to be allowed to speak to the public and to use that platform to bash the country that allowed you to have this opportunity in the first place makes no sense. They should be so grateful for that opportunity. I mean, we've seen such a rich history of American Olympians who have achieved such great things. And it really feels like over the past 10 to 15 years, this attempt to go full in on anti-America sentiment domestically is where you see it the worst. But then to be overseas where, our differences when it comes to politics should end when you get to the border, when you're outside the United States. We're all representing America together. For them to choose that as the venue to air their attacks on America is unforgivable.
No, I want to switch back to a 250toolkit.com because Emily was just on. I want to know, I understood you guys rolled up in limos and that you had escorts in and out. She was telling me that you just rolled up in big black SUVs and there was security everywhere. I got there in an Uber and I had to trudge through the snow. I'm just thinking that maybe you guys are getting big, really big. I'm afraid the band's going to break up. It's like the Beatles. I'm afraid something's going to happen. Is the creative juice still working? Is it still 100%? Fun there?
This team will never break up, and I wish we could get like a limo or something. The day we had our event in Philadelphia was like the same week as the snowstorms hit. So our flight and then our train was canceled. So we had to just hop into a car and go from D.C. to Philly. And thank goodness we were able to get there in time and just had a wonderful time at the event.
Oh, that's not what Emily tells me. You're like the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, that they had teenage girls out there getting you. Not Ashbrook.
I mean, they made us feel like a
Ashbrook's
star. They made us feel like a star. That crowd was amazing.
Smug, always good to see you. Go and listen to the Ruthless podcast where Smug unloads on the Olympians, rightly so, but all of them can be found at Ruthless Podcast on X. Smug can be found at Comfortably Smug. Mary Catherine Ham is the host of the Getting Hammered podcast, which she co-hosts with Vic Mattis. She joins me once a week. Mary Catherine, I'm going to ask you to stay a little bit longer because I'm going to begin by just bagging on Guy Benson. I hate working with Guy Benson. We did it again last night. He led off. He's the leadoff hitter. He just kills it, got the crowd laughing, and, then I'm the cleanup hitter. People in D.C. lead these events, so they're about half empty at the end. And they're all talking about Guy. Don't you hate working with him?
Well, I'm usually on stage with him, so I'm just mooching off of that energy, you see? That's how you got to play it. And also, you guys were both great, and you got to talk to an NFL legend. I mean, incredible stuff last night. I was there, by the way. I didn't catch you in the room.
I didn't see you.
Yep.
But wasn't Guy amazing? I was out there on the sidelines watching him, and he brings this amazing energy. I wonder, I'm 70 years old, so I don't have that kind of energy, but did I ever have that kind of energy? He just sort of like pops.
Yes. Yes, you do. You have it now. You did a great job.
Well, it was great fun. Mary Catherine, I want to talk to you about the big meeting at the White House today. I think there are two doors in front of President Trump. I've said this many times today. One is marked Truman Reagan. One is marked Carter, Obama, Biden. With regards to Iran, which one do you think he's going to walk through?
Oh, my guess would be the bellicose one, because I think he cares about his threat credibility. And I think he pictures it differently than a Reagan, right? Who would have a more global security concern. But I think Trump's probably top concern is that his threat credibility be maintained. And I think that is what is at risk here when we're talking about Iran, because he was pretty explicit. And if he does the red line thing like Obama, that doesn't end well.
Now, I had the Iranian Crown Prince on, Reza Pahlavi, on Monday. He said President Trump promised. That was kind of ratcheting up the rhetoric for the Crown Prince to do. I think they're getting desperate. Do you think... When he says, I think President Trump promised, what do you think he's trying to convey to the White House?
I mean, look, I think it's very clear that, they should be in a place of desperation. I mean, when tens of thousands of people are being murdered, I mean, you have to appeal in the best way that you can appeal. And so I think he is saying that something can work here, but it needs support. I know it's very tricky because so many... there isn't exactly like a shadow government for Iran, right? You don't know where this goes next. But I do think the president several times said, if they do what they have done, which is murder all these people, that help would be on the way, that he would step in
That's
in
it.
some way.
That's the line. I wasn't going to prompt you, but that's the line. Help is on the way. It's very hard to walk away from help is on the way if help doesn't show up in a very visible way. It's like tattooed on Trump. And
yes.
He'll never get away from it. If he takes a deal or if he doesn't do anything or says we did a cyber attack, it will haunt his presidency. It's over, effectively, I think.
I think it will haunt him. I'm not sure if it'll haunt him personally. He has a way of sort of spinning on to the next thing. But I think it matters a great deal. And like I said, I think he's interested in preserving his own credibility when it comes to being a guy who will take action when he says he's going to. And he was pretty clear about that. And also, what is the point of a deal? Like we've done the deal before. The deal doesn't help. The deal hurts people.
I don't worry about the negotiation. I told someone earlier today, that's all chaff. I don't care what happens between now and the strikes because it's all misdirection from the master of that. But I do matter about the end result. And Mark Montgomery, the admiral, said they got about 3 months on station with the Lincoln before they wear down and don't lose their sharpness and have to come home because it's too long to be on station in a strike pose. But I do think when someone relies on you, have you ever actually disappointed your kid? Have they ever had a valid reason for saying you said Disneyland and we didn't go to Disneyland kind of stuff? It's very damning. Sometimes it happens.
Yes, I have this problem because I'm not great at schedules. You might have noticed, Hugh, having worked with me over the years, and so I will drop a ball every now and then, and I just have to man up and apologize to my children when that happens. But the stakes are not quite as high when it's just an extracurricular activity.
Well, when I say haunt, I mean like Obama haunted by the red line. That's what.
Yeah.
Will Trump be as haunted as Obama is by the red line if he doesn't do what we expect him to do?
I think it has the potential for that. Our news cycle moves so quickly now that I think the potential for haunting is less than it used to be, but I think it will matter. And it will matter when the next bad guy wants to pull something because he will say, well, he said he was going to do it and he didn't. That's the part that sticks around.
Right.
That part does not leave
It's
the
going
bad
to be
guys.
the first chapter of every book written about Trump for the next 25 years, what he does in the next 3 months. Mary Catherine, all week I've been sounding like Beaker. You remember Beaker?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been sounding like because it is so cold. Now it's turned today. It started to turn. I know. Stop with the Beaker. I want you to confirm for the audience not in the Beltway that this is in fact colder than it's ever been in Virginia.
I think that is true, especially for such a sustained time. Certainly since I've been here, there was one summer when my oldest was one, or one winter when my oldest was one that was very rough, but I don't think it was for this long. And I know I'm a Southerner, so I'm a wimp, but like listen to Hugh, because Hugh spent time in Ohio. He knows what cold is. It's legit cold, and now I feel like 29 degrees is a vacation, which is so sad. I've become one of you.
Yeah, it's Ohio weather now. This is spring in Ohio, but I can go out tonight and not freeze. But on Tuesday night, I walked out the door with a friend to go, or Monday night, I walked out the friend to go to dinner in Virginia, and it was like getting slapped in the face. And then I began to think about people with kids, AKA the Ham family, because they can't go out, right? Are they tearing sockets off the wall and throwing knives at targets?
Yeah, okay, so we do take them out, but we have to maintain the snow gear in a rational way somewhere in the house, which is very hard. And then you have to actually bundle them up, which is hard. You know what the real problem is the dog, because he is a Belgian Malinois. He is a working dog. He needs lots of exercise, but we cannot take him out in the snowcrete because he can't sprint in that. He's going to hurt himself. So that poor guy has been losing his mind. The toddlers thus far have been relatively sane. They're also not big kids now. They're not really toddlers, but you know what I'm saying.
Last question on this topic, and then I'll let it go. I wanted proof of life or proof of cold from Mary Catherine Ham. I'm not making this up. Is that one of my sons had pipes burst in the house, so they'll be moving into my house. I won't be coming back when I thought I was coming back because they've got to take care. Did you lose any pipes? Did you have any friends who lost any pipes? Because I don't think Virginia houses are built for this stuff.
We're not, yes, and we're also not prepared to do all the hacks. Like I have to Google everything. Like, how do you take care of your house in the cold? But we have come out thus far okay. Everything is safe, and I'm excited for you to get to, I guess, hang out with your family in a very close manner in the near future.
Oh no, we're not coming. Oh gosh, I would never do that. Grandkids are fine for 2 days. I don't know if your parents feel the same way as I do, but they're wonderful for 2 days. They're okay for 2 days, and then you're thinking your back begins to hurt. Are your mom and dad that way?
Yeah, they can take a toll. They're very rambunctious and they're very large at this point. So
that's it. So that's what my rule is. 2 days great, 2 days okay, and then 2 days I can't move. Mary Catherine Ham, thank you. Getting Hammered coming out tomorrow with Vic Mattis. Thank you, Mary Catherine. Be well.
Thank you.
Jim Garrity is in the house. Follow him on X at Jim Garrity. Read him in the Washington Post. Get his morning jolt from National Review, and be very leery about his boys. Jim. I was out trundling in California last week, up a pretty steep hill, and there to my surprise, I ran into this little guy, a robot, in the middle of nowhere. Just absolutely, it's a science experiment gone mad. It's not a delivery robot. I don't know what he was doing up there. I mean, it's nowhere. There's nothing there. It can't be a delivery robot. Any Garrity boy associated with this robot? I thought maybe you were spying on me.
No, this does not look like one that is involved in the robotics competition that my younger son is involved in. It would be involved in an intake to scoop up volleyball type size yellow balls and some sort of shooter to shoot it up into a basket. That is part of the competition for this year, which will be held.
This doesn't have arms. It can't shoot. So that's not
my
you.
My guess is
However,
it's probably a scout, Hugh, a scout by Skynet, and it is coming. There's going to be a terrible uprising.
Honestly, I was a little bit worried about turning my back to it when I went by it. I'm faster than it, though. Jim, now very serious stuff. Bibi Netanyahu spent a lot of time at the White House today. There are two doors in front of Donald Trump, one marked Truman Reagan, one marked Carter, Obama, Biden. Which one do you think he's going to walk through vis-a-vis Iran?
Oh, I really wanted to be the first one. You had said that March 15th was in your mind, kind of the internal deadline. I would note that this morning marks 30 days since Trump jumped on Truth Social and said to the Iranian protesters, keep it up. Help is on the way. MEGA, make Iran great again, is what I assume that stood for. Look, I think that was, I would be perfectly happy to see the U.S. government take some action that would end up resulting in the collapse of the regime. A month ago, it really looked like this regime was in really rough shape and that there might be a popular uprising that would topple it from power. I feel like the last 30 days have not gone well for the resistance. There's been a hell of a lot of people killed. Different estimates will give you a number. We're talking a 5-figure sum, right? Could be in the 20 to 30 range.
I had the Crown Prince of Iran on Monday, and he said the minimum number, now that they confirmed 36,500, but he fears it may go over 40,000, and they continue to kill.
Yeah, I don't know if the opportunity to topple the regime has gotten better in the last month. I fear that there's been enough of a crackdown. Now, I'd point out that what spurred these uprisings, the economic problems, the rapid devaluing of the Iranian currency, that is probably, that problem hasn't been solved. So in some ways, the Iranian regime, even if it manages to tamp down all these protests, is probably back to square one. It's still going to have those problems. But as I said, look, if it's saying, oh, we needed time to move an aircraft carrier, now there's talk about a second aircraft carrier group moving to the Middle East. I understand that, but I'd really prefer if the president thought about these things before he jumped on Truth Social. And it was on your program a couple of days earlier where he said if they kept killing the protests, we were going to react in some way. That's now.
There is one good defense of him, Jim. I'm going to make it, which is he was trying to stop the massacre because he was speaking to the regime because the internet was cut off. They weren't really responding to Trump's call to go out and march, but he was trying to communicate with the regime. Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery was on the program same day as the Reza Pahlavi. He said, look, the Lincoln needed to get there. It needed 2 weeks on station. They have a 3-week loiter capability, a 3-month loiter capability. Then they got to leave. So the window is open for 3 months. He does not want to strike in Ramadan, and he's not afraid of the fleet, though the bases have a little bit of exposure. I think if the president waits 3 months, he's gone through the door marked Obama. Do you agree with me?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I do feel like the clock is ticking, that I don't feel like things are getting necessarily better for those. And by the way, the other things, we've sent Witkoff out to have meetings with the Iranians, and apparently we want to reach a nuclear deal with a regime that has broken almost every treaty it's ever signed. To me, the problem is not necessarily just the Iranian nuclear program or its sponsorship of other terror groups. Or the problem is the regime itself. There is no way we can reach a deal with this regime that we can trust them and that they're probably going to hold their word to. So to me, if we have an opportunity to knock these guys off and have anybody come along, I would say, hey, go ahead and take that. Now,
I'm with you, but I can't. I don't think we can guarantee regime change, Jim. I'm being a very realist here. I think we can create a lot of dust where there was a missile program. I think we can hit a lot of IRGC barracks. We might be able to kill Khamenei, but there are 150,000 IRGCs with machine guns. I don't know that they'll ever. I asked the Crown Prince this. Can you topple the regime? And it's up to the people of Iran. We can't do that, but we can create the conditions. Everything, by the way, Witkoff, Jared Kushner, everything else to me is chaff. It's all smoke and mirrors. Tell me what has happened I said March 15th originally. The Admiral corrected me back to the end of April for the window. If in the end he hammers Iran, I think it's the most important day of his presidency, or weeks or months of his presidency. Agree, disagree?
I would agree that at least it's definitely up there. And I think that one of the best days of Trump's presidency in his first year was the strike on the Iranian nuclear program, resolving an issue that multiple presidents had said they were going to take care of, but had not really taken much care of. Maybe you could put the release of the hostages from Israel on that category, competing for the best day. But in the end, first of all, your original deadline, Hugh, I just like the idea of saying beware the Ides of March. So March 15th does
I didn't know
like
it was Ramadan. I didn't know it was Ramadan. The Admiral said we don't do stuff in Ramadan. I don't know why, but he said we don't.
Yeah. But just kind of this generally, I also don't like the President of the United States going out and saying help is on the way, and then saying, oh, I meant I was going to send Witkoff. That's not, everybody knows that was not what he meant at that time. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be airstrikes. You can do cyber, you can do various communication jamming, you can do various other steps in design.
Not enough for me. Not enough for me.
I was going to say, like, I'd like to see a heck of a lot more. And I think that was like Pompeo or somebody was saying, well, surely we're doing something behind the scenes. I'd like to believe that, and I understand if a program is covert or classified, you kind of have to keep it covert. But the idea of trust us, look, we said we were going to do something. You can't see anything that we're doing, but trust us, we're doing it. That's asking the American public and the world to take a lot on faith.
That does not restore American deterrence, which is in the balance right now. I think the Trump presidency is in the balance. I'm one of these people who are very clear. You only get 1 or 2 days, even in 8 years, that matter. Like when Margaret Thatcher told George H.W. Bush, don't go wobbly. You didn't have to tell the fighter pilot that, but President Trump can't go wobbly, and he can't go behind the scenes. And Jim Garrity, make sure your boys are keeping their robots out of my neighborhood. I'm worried about them. Follow Jim at Jim Garrity on X. Read his Morning Jolt, which you can sign up for at nationalreview.com, and read his Washington Post column. Thank you, Jim. I hope you go over to my X account. I have posted a few times today my D.C. Examiner, Washington Examiner column on the choice before President Trump as he meets with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. Most important choice he makes in both of his terms. There is no second place. If he hits Iran now, he wins history. If he doesn't, he's in the pile marked Obama, Carter, and Biden. Yeah, I know he hit Iran once. That was great. He hit Maduro twice. That's great. Hit Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, great. But your big challenge is before you, Mr. President. Go for it. Hammer them. Turn the missiles into dust. Shatter the IRGC barrack. You can't bring them up regime change. You just punish them for murdering 35,000 of their civilians. And they threaten us, and everybody knows it. So I want you to please do that. I also want to remind everyone, the guest today, Emily Siddell, from Americans for Prosperity. The One Small Step campaign is at a250toolkit.com. Now, I don't have to do that. I just thought I was inspired by Emily last night. Everyone can do something in our 250th year to reinvigorate American freedom and American democracy. All you need to do is go to a250toolkit.com, get involved. Everyone's got a way to do it. Democracy and individual liberty, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, depends on you doing something in your community that is good and lasting and not necessarily big. Something maybe pretty small, but something moving forward. You can always sign up for Americans for Prosperity. They'll put you to work, but don't sit out this 250th birthday celebration. And I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I did not fall down last night on the icy streets of the D.C. I did not take my coat. That was the big choice between coat and no coat, and I did not take my coat, and it did not turn out to be freezing last night. It was actually kind of pleasant for a D.C. February, and I remind everyone, though I was prepared to fall down. I'm actually going out after the program to try and get a couple miles in because it's only 40. It's not really bad, and I've just been cooped up and don't want to stay that way. So I took my Relief Factor in hour number 1. I remind you about it in hour number 2, and always tell you, you get a starter pack for $19.95 over at their website, or you can call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or head over to their website, find the same starter pack. It's a 3-week supply, $19.95, less than $1 a day. I take it every day. The only supplement I've taken for more than 20 years. I've been taking it for 13 years. I'm in my 13th year now, and I encourage you to give it a try if you're dealing with minor aches and pains and you're living on Tylenol or Advil or ibuprofen or something. Just put that aside for a while. Try Relief Factor for 3 weeks. And then come back tomorrow. There's lots more ahead. I am not on special report tonight. Mix up, not going to happen. But I told you that yesterday, so I want to make sure you're not tuned in. But you can watch anyway. They got the latest that is breaking on the Nancy Guthrie case. And Brett will be all over that, as he is everything.